The controversy that Farage has provoked by his ill-advised comments to Nick Robinson on the Panorama interview, where he stated that the West bore responsibility for Russia's invasion or Putin's invasion or the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine, has generated a significant backlash and dominates the newspapers today, or at least the Daily Mail. Huge headline. And it's because President Zelenskyy, or rather his office, is quoted as saying, the virus of Putinism unfortunately infects people, and suggests that Farage's comments align with Russian propaganda narrative. And although this wasn't an official reaction from Kyiv, it reflects, I think, strong disapproval from Zelenskyy's inner circle, which parallels that of Rishi Sunak, who also, of course, condemns Farage's remarks, saying they were completely wrong and play into Putin's hands. And, this is a time when defense spending is being increased, although the Labour Party is equivocating a little about that. And politicians, military veterans who accuse Farage of reiterating Putin's justifications for conflict in Ukraine are the very people that Farage needs to attract in order to score a victory over Giles, the Conservative candidate in Clacton. I think he's going to have a tough call, and I think this nonsense that he's come out with is not going to make it any better because he's alienated his core vote, and his comments have reignited debates, serious debates about the influence of Russia in Western political discourse, the influence of Russia in the referendum, the influence of Russia before that in the and the responsibilities of public figures in shaping public opinion, in taking money from foreign governments, and in responding to the international situation. Farage attributes blame for Putin's invasion to the West. But then he's tried to soften this more recently. Starmer has still called what he said disgraceful, and Sunak particularly references the deployment of nerve agents on British soil, the 2018 Salisbury attack, and the calculated threat of Russia. Annabel Denham, who was speaking on Gbnews this morning and reviewing the newspapers, was prepared to question whether Farage was a Putin sympathizer or an appeaser, and she argues, as I do, that the real problem was the West's failure to respond decisively to Putin's 2014 annexation of Crimea, which emboldened the Russian leader. She used the word, she stumbled over the word pusillanimity. Oh my goodness, now I'm stumbling over the word now. Anyway, it was the West's weakness. It was the West's weakness to deal with this problem, and it seems entirely inappropriate that that Farage should suggest it's the West's boldness. It's the West's boldness. Let's try that word again. She said it was the pusillanimity. There we are, pusillanimity. It is a difficult word to get out if you're not thinking carefully, and she clearly wasn't, and nor was I. Pusillanimity, and of the West that emboldened Putin. And we failed to respond to the invasion of Crimea in 2014. And we need to remember, she went on to say, that Putin is a tyrant and possibly a madman. Brilliant words. She talked about the possibility, the idea that this entire debate was Trumpian of Farage. And in contrast, the GB News anchor was saying that this is foolishness because the right, including Reform UK, is motivated by fairness, and they would tend to regard Putin as a maniac who wants to take over the Western world. And they would also be motivated by patriotism. And this doesn't seem to be patriotic. This seems to be the gadfly or the snake in the grass. And so the motivation of Farage's comments was at least explored in GB News, and I think it's good to get that out there. And I think the bigger question is indeed how the West should respond to Putin's aggression, and the role of public figures in shaping that discourse and in shaping our response, because it's not just diplomats who need to be careful with their language. We are in a very hostile world at the moment, and the casual and stupid words of ill-primed and silly individuals who are looking to put themselves on the front page, this is as dangerous as ill-considered words by senior diplomats or senior politicians. I will continue to say that if Liz Truss had not been the Foreign Secretary under Boris Johnson, if Liz Truss had not been the Foreign Secretary, frankly, if Boris had not been Prime Minister, then I think our intervention may have been helpful in stopping Putin, or at least making him pause. As it was, I think it enraged and empowered him. It encouraged him. Liz Truss's stupidity engorged the ego of both Sergei Lavrov and his master Putin. Woof woof. And now that Putin is dead, and the concept of Putin survives, it's much harder to negotiate with anybody. It's much harder to change that framework because we are locked into, or rather Putin is locked into this confrontational directive assault. And it's hard to change direction when you don't know who you're talking to.